All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a piece of technology that's, well, it's pretty much an unsung hero. It works silently in the background for some of the biggest companies on the planet. We're talking about Oracle DataGuard, a real guardian of our digital world. So here's the big question, right? It's the one that probably keeps CIOs and, sysadmins everywhere up at night. In a world that runs on data, how do you protect it from the absolute worst-case scenario? We're talking a massive flood, a power grid going down, a complete system meltdown. Any of these things could just obliterate the data that keeps a modern business alive. So, what do you do?
Well, Oracle's answer to that very question started coming together way back in the late 90s. They were facing this huge challenge, and what they came up with was, honestly, it was beautiful in its simplicity. It was designed to be the absolute last line of defense against, well, data extinction.
And the whole thing was built on this one core idea, the standby database. The easiest way to think about it is like a perfect mirror, or maybe a clone. It's an exact, transaction-for-transaction copy of your main, what we call the primary database. And it just sits there, constantly getting updated, just waiting for that one moment you hope never comes, the moment the primary database fails. This whole thing officially made its debut with Oracle 8i. And back then, there were no fancy bells and whistles. Nope, it had one single, laser-focused mission: survival. It was all about keeping the lights on and making absolutely sure that not a single critical byte of data just disappeared. But, like any good guardian, it wasn't going to stay static forever. This simple protector, it started to evolve. It got smarter, it got faster, and way more powerful. Its job was about to become a whole lot more than just sitting around waiting for disaster. And this timeline here really gives you a great roadmap of that evolution. You can see we start with automation showing up, then we get to what I'd call the active revolution, and finally how it all adapted to the modern world of IT. So let's dig into that first big jump forward. See, in the early days, if that main database went down, a person, had to get a call, probably in the middle of the night, and make the decision to activate the standby. And that whole process, it could take minutes, maybe even hours, and that's super expensive downtime. But then came versions 9i and 10G, and everything changed. The system could actually detect a failure by itself and just trigger the switchover automatically. That took human delay and human error right out of the equation. It was a massive boost for the speed and reliability of disaster recovery. And then we got Oracle 11G. Look, if there was one single release that just completely changed the game for DataGuard, this was it. One new idea was introduced that flipped the whole value proposition completely on its head. Okay, so this is where that massive shift happened. Before 11G, your standby database was basically just a really, really expensive insurance policy that sat there doing nothing. But with Active DataGuard, boom, that standby could now be open for read-only access. All of a sudden, you could offload all your reporting, your backups, user queries. You could send all that work to the standby. It turned this passive asset into a genuinely active part of your setup, and it did all this while still protecting your primary data. I mean, the impact of this was just huge. That insurance policy that was just sitting there, it was now an active working part of the infrastructure. It was an incredible win for efficiency. All of a sudden, companies were getting two things for the price of one: top-tier disaster protection and a way to scale their performance by taking load off their main systems. It was a total game changer. So, while all this cool stuff was happening with DataGuard, the world around it wasn't exactly standing still. It was changing, and fast. That simple old client-server model was being replaced by these incredibly complex new architectures. And you guessed it, DataGuard had to keep up. And yeah, the IT landscape was just changing at lightning speed. Suddenly you got multi-tenant architecture, where you're cramming lots of databases into one, then boom, the huge rush to the cloud. After that, you get these complex hybrid setups. 1 foot in your own data center, 1 foot in the cloud. DataGuard had no choice. It had to evolve to protect every single one of these new scenarios. To put it simply, the whole scope of what needed protecting just exploded. We weren't talking about protecting one server in one building anymore. Now, it was all about guaranteeing the resilience of these enormous interconnected systems that stretched all across the globe. Which brings us right up to the present day. And this is where that Guardian gets a serious upgrade, a new kind of intelligence that transforms it from just a reactive tool into a truly proactive shield. So in the latest version, 23i, DataGuard is now working hand in hand with Oracle's autonomous database. And what does that mean?
Well, it means the Guardian isn't just following a set of pre-programmed rules anymore. It's actually learning. It's adapting all on its own.
So, what does this intelligent defense actually look like in practice? Well, first, the system uses AI to constantly monitor everything, looking for trouble. But then comes the really mind-blowing part: predictive failover. It can actually analyze trends to see a failure coming before it happens, and it can start a switchover on its own to prevent any downtime at all. Think about that. The combination of these things creates real global resilience. It means no matter where a problem might pop up, the system is already a step ahead.
When you step back and look at the whole journey, from a simple, passive copy of a database to this intelligent, predictive, global shield, it's pretty remarkable. It's really a story of constant evolution, always adapting to new technologies and new threats.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. We've built this incredibly smart shield, but we all know the world of threats is always changing, right? The cat-and-mouse game between attack and defense, it never stops. So what's next on the horizon? What's the new challenge that's going to force this Guardian to evolve all over again?